Hello, everyone. A very good morning and a very good evening to people joining around from around the world. I'm Riddhi Modi from Mumbai, India. I'm living with type 1 diabetes, and I'm so delighted to welcome you all on this World Diabetes Day special webinar. We're going to talk about leadership and empowerment in T1D Care, and we are going to throw a global holistic spotlight with our esteemed speakers today on the panel. But before we go to the panel, I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Banshi Sabu from India. He is currently the IDF chair of Southeast Asia region and a force to reckon with. Good morning, Banshi sir, and a warm
Hello.
welcome to you.
Hello.
We'll be happy if you can share a few highlights of this year's World Diabetes Day. And as we begin this session, we would like you to lead all of us with a hopeful and inspiring message.
So first of all, thank you, Riddhi, for inviting me. I'm really very happy and very excited that a lot of activities which we are doing in India. As India is a large country, it's a continent. Rather for Southeast Asia also, it is biggest country. And we are having highest number of type 1 in the world. So most of people around the world, they don't know that actually in India below the age of 19 years, we have 200,000 plus people who are living with type 1 diabetes. Adult population and pediatric population, if we combine, at present we have 1 million. The problem is the long-term survival, uh, better care. We are always in need of that, and that's the reason the programs which is done by Empower, Type 1 Diabetes Conclave, and different foundations in India, including our doctors' organizations like Diabetes India, RSSDI, and many more organizations of our pediatric endo as well as adult endocrine society. All of us, we are working for improving care for people with diabetes. I'm working at IDF where we are uh, working also at the for same motto with the idea that across the world, the people living with diabetes, with both with type 1 and type 2, should have a better quality of life, and they should have better and better control so we can prevent the complication. As far as idea of Southeast Asia is concerned, the concerns are almost equal. Whether you go to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, we have not only similar in all the things, but we are also similar as far as care is concerned. We all are in developing phase, developing countries. Not many technology are part. I'm very happy to see the Kyle, who is part of International Diabetic Federation, Vice President. Welcome him here and have here. And Sal, she is from Leap. So I mean, this is the way. There is a one advantage after COVID, which I always feel these are, blessing in disguise that we all are connected through the online system. We all become very perfect. And it's so particular and time-wise also. Everyone will join at 11 o'clock. Everyone will listen at the same time. So everything goes perfect. If we do all these things even physically, sometimes things will not perfect. So I'm really very happy, and we know each other since years. He's also not only person with living with diabetes, but at the same time, he's having knows a lot of technology. He's, I can say, technology man, Kyle. And then you are getting on this same platform Amit Day, who is AI man of our country. So a nice combination which we have. And I'm sure this type of Empower Type 1D program, which is supported by USV, will go to every corner. We want to teach and educate primary care doctors. We want to teach and educate the people living with diabetes. And we want to teach and educate the people who are already working with foundations, already educated, or they are practicing diabetologists, because care has to be improved. So multiple such types programs are very, very welcome. On this 14th World Diabetes Day, thousands of programs, not Kyle, one or two programs which we are doing. I mean, physical and online, and I'm getting so many requests and so many programs which we are doing. Even in my own city, 100 gardens, day after tomorrow, we are going to have 100 gardens. We have with Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. So hundreds of programs, and across the country, thousands of programs which are done, and everyone is supporting. The idea is for increasing awareness, early detection, and better care. So this is what we want for everyone living with diabetes. And we should educate more and more people so they can be given better and better care. With this, once again, thank you, Riddhi, thank you, Amit, and thank you, Kyle and Sylvie, from joining from abroad, because there may be a difference in timing, so that's a challenge for us. But sometimes our request is being taken by. I'm sure Kyle must be traveling. He might be in USA or Canada. I don't know where he is, which part of the globe, and we don't know at what time and at this point of time where he is. But still, he joined, and we are really thankful. Thank you, USB, for support, and thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. Next up, we have Dr. Amit. Dr. Amit Kumar Dey has sown the seeds of a holistic world for the type 1 diabetes community in India. I don't know how he finds the energy and time to manage his practice and yet keep inspiring each one of us. He's always on his toes with that indispensable energy that he has, and also managing his multiple AI related learnings as well as sharings. Now so deeply involved with IDF as well, and constantly coming up with fantastic dynamic ideas for us. Dr. Amit, over to you.
So much, Riddhi. If you talk about inspiration, one person that has been an inspiration to me for many years has been Dr. Banshi. Sitting right here in this frame, he keeps on inspiring so many of us to, just go that extra mile. But a warm welcome to Kyle, my dear friend from the International Diabetes Federation, to Sylvie. 2 years back, we started.
Jackie also joined. So we welcome Jackie. She's the Vice President of IDEO.
Yes. Hi, Jackie.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jackie,
Welcome, please. Yes. So 2 years back, we started the Empower T1D community with a simple vision of bringing everybody working on type 1 diabetes under one single platform so that there can be exchange of ideas and knowledge, not only from medical professionals, but also from patient communities with each other. And I think Riddhi has been pivotal in taking this forward, connecting all the dots across people, different parts of the country, and now we are of course connecting with people across the globe as well. So I'm very proud, I'm very happy, and at this moment of the World Diabetes Day, last year we started with this message that each one for a type 1, and I strongly believe, as Dr. Banshi also keeps on saying, that every drop makes an ocean. I think together, if we work together hand in hand, we can really take the care for individuals living with type 1 diabetes to every corner of the country and to every corner of the world. I think that is going to be the focus and the vision of the Empower T1D community. It is your community, all of you who are listening to this today and will be listening to the recording. It is your community, it is your voice that matters. And we are only going to be delivering your voice to the global community at large. Once again, thank you very much to everyone for contributing to this cause. And I believe on this World Diabetes Day, we can take this message far and wide. Now I'll hand back to Riddhi without any further delay to start the fantastic session with Kyle and Sylvie. But before that, maybe we can have a quick kind of a message from Jackie, because she has also joined us from Dialab. And thank you very much to Dialab and to IDF for the collaboration in this session, as well as to the tie-up team. Thank you so much.
Dr. Jackie, it will be wonderful to have you. And maybe we could even take a screenshot to celebrate our esteemed speakers all together.
So maybe she's not connected through the video, so we could move on and then come back when Sylvie takes over the screen. Yeah, that might be a better way.
So I'm excited to introduce Kyle, our first speaker guest today. And Kyle is a passionate diabetes advocate. He's an entrepreneur and innovator with over 2 decades of experience spanning medical technology, digital health, and community advocacy. From working with startups like My Sugar and Bigfoot Biomedical, and now today serving on the board of directors with the International Diabetes Federation, Kyle's journey bridges innovation, empowerment, and real world impact. We are so excited to have you with us, Kyle. Thank you for joining us. And I know it's really late night in US, but we're looking forward to hear you. A warm welcome from Empower T1D and Tie-Up and the India community at large.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you to the organizers, Dr. Banshi, for your warm words of welcome, Dr. Amit Day, and Empower T1D. I think you made a really compelling point there, Dr. Banshi, that no matter what the time or the geography, we're all here for the cause of people living with diabetes. And I'm very proud to be invited and to be here with you today. So thank you so much for that.
So Kyle, you've lived much of your life both as an engineer and a person with diabetes. So what originally motivated you to turn your professional expertise into a mission of advocacy? And how has that evolved over the years?
Yes, thank you. So you might gather from my name, I'm a Franco-American. I've spent my life back and forth between North America and France. And it was in France that I kind of first developed my passion for advocacy. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes myself as a teenager. And then I also have another family connection to type 1 diabetes. A few years ago, my mother, at the age of 82 years old, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is quite an outlier in terms of age. So I'm now also a part-time caregiver and have seen both perspectives. I think that when I was diagnosed, I went through what so many of us have gone through in terms of, a real sense of denial and frustration and why me, but was fortunate to be in a healthcare system that allowed me access to good care and technology. And at the time, I was very passionate in sports and cycling in particular, le vélo en France, and used my cycling kind of as a stage to create awareness about living with diabetes and what that meant in terms of day-to-day. Through this, I got to know the Fédération Française des Diabétiques, the French Diabetes Association, and started doing advocacy work at the both local and regional and national level for FFD, IFD at the time. And from that was nominated onto the board at IDF Europe, where I became involved with youth initiatives like the Youth Leadership Camp and YORA initiatives that I'm still involved with today. And then the next step for me was global involvement with IDF, where I now sit on the board and co-chair the Youth Activity Committee with Dr. Jackie Malouf, who's here on the call today. In addition to that, I'm also involved in a few organizations outside of IDF, including the Diabetes Education and Camping Association, Diabetes Wise, a education platform at Stanford University about diabetes medical devices, and the Enodia Research Consortium led by Chantal Mathieu in Europe.
No, it's absolutely a pleasure to, hear how you've been driving advocacy, and I'm sure it must have been very challenging for you initially, but how you've translated this whole lived experience into a mission of advocacy. I think, anything that drives us, anything that we are passionate about, like say, for example, you said, you use cycling, any kind of sport or any such medium, that actually elevates us to drive the message and create more awareness. So we completely appreciate that. And I think that helps us inculcate the sense of belonging with the community, a deeper sense of engagement, and takes us further in this mission. I would like to, ask you, like you worked in advocacy across multiple avenues, like from medtech startups and engineering roles. And now you're like engaged with IDF Diabetes Wise, as you said, such a powerful platform. And how do you adapt your advocacy voices across these different spaces? And how do you synthesize all your learning to translate it into an ongoing, initiative?
Well, I think, I'm trained as an engineer, and I think the first time I worked on a tech project that was diabetes related, I never went back after that, because it was amazing to be able to use my discipline to work on technology, whether it was digital health or medical devices that actually helped people living with diabetes, my fellow PWDs and their families. And there were a few examples of that. I was at a startup many years ago called TheraSense that was working on continuous glucose monitoring. This was acquired by Abbott, and the guts of what we were working on was turned into the product that many people know today as Abbott Libre. And also, as you mentioned, I was part of the initial team at MySugar, a digital health company out of Austria that was eventually sold to Roche. And I think the common theme throughout these for me was trying to push the envelope in terms of new tech, but in a way that resonated with fellow people living with diabetes, whether it be in the communication or in the day-to-day tools that we developed with this tech. And I think today, now sitting kind of in both of these worlds between startups and nonprofits like the IDF, I really emphasize and encourage industrial organizations and manufacturers to reach out to people with lived experience and not do it as a tokenistic effort too late. Really bring this initiatives in early on, as early as possible, so that when you're designing products, when you're communicating to people, it resonates with what they're living day to day, because otherwise I think you learn the hard way very quickly that there will be frustrations. Now, I think it's an intimidating prospect for industrial manufacturers, particularly in certain countries, like in France, there are laws about how and who they can reach out to. But there are ways to do it. And the one example I'd really like to highlight, because I think it worked so well, is with Inodia. Dr. Chantal Mathieu is a very passionate endocrinologist out of Belgium. And when she started the Inodia project, this large public-private research consortium, she insisted on putting people with lived experience at the center. There were work packages looking at new therapeutics for diabetes, but every single stream must include, or had to include, I should say, somebody with lived experience on the committee to kind of give a nod of approval, really, as this was being developed. And I think it's a beautiful example of people with lived experience working with research, cutting edge research, and ultimately trying to find a way to improve the lives of people with diabetes.
So I think it's very fascinating to see this, how we kind of connect. So healthcare professionals can really drive this kind of empowerment, and that's what gave birth to Empower T1D, with fascinating healthcare professionals who are always ready to, work with the community. And as I hear you, it just deepens my thought to say how lived experiences can be the core to getting further in this mission of advocacy. So there's a point where we need innovators, we need healthcare professionals and lived experience champions like you, who can see that vision and take it beyond and above the challenges of living with type 1 diabetes. So I feel like, of course, the best of technology is required. And personally, I feel using technology has really elevated my own diabetes management. But somewhere, like, we need to keep bringing back the human connection and the community engagement to succeed further. So I would like to speak a little bit more about community collaboration and a little bit about culture, because you've spent a fair bit of your time in Europe, and now you do spend a lot of time in US as well. So can you share with us how community engagement and collaboration across these different healthcare stakeholders, like, how do culture, language, and lived experiences shape our global diabetes communities? That would be really inspiring to know.
It's a great question. Thank you, Ridi. And it's one that I think I face every day, because I'm doing a lot of work in startups in California where, as I mentioned, we're really kind of pushing the envelope in terms of cutting edge technology. And I'm also sitting on a board at IDF that allows me, like many people here, to have vision into the reality of day-to-day, whether it be in low to middle income countries or otherwise, and access to tech. And there's essentially these are polar extremes. We know that when this is being developed, that it's being developed potentially at a cost that's prohibitive to the masses. And I am constantly trying to represent that voice in Silicon Valley at the back of the room, saying, hey, not everyone has this device, not everyone has access to this. And I think that there's a need for both. I think that particularly Dr. Banshi and Dr. Day, who are so well versed in tech, would hopefully agree that we need to push tech, but we at the same time, we need to try to remember or remind our colleagues who are driving the new technologies that not everyone will have the latest iOS Apple phone to use this on. Not everyone will even have the latest model of a certain medical device because it may not have ever been launched in their particular geography or have a distributor that allows them to. So I think these are things that I'm constantly thinking about. But at the same time, the tech itself is transformative. And one example I'd like to highlight that during my last 20 years working in this field has been transformative, that is continuous glucose monitoring. When CGM was first being developed, it was larger, it was clunky, it was much more expensive. And as years have gone on, we've been able to drive that cost down as a space and provide it to more and more people, but still not to everyone, which is something that constantly is in the back of my mind as I see new generations, as I see perhaps Americans saying, oh, I want the latest version of this. I remember that it took 10, 15 years for that first version to be launched in France and reimbursed by the social authority, and even longer in other territories. And so I think for me, access is fundamentally key and should equally be part of the equation as early as possible. But I, as an engineer and as someone who's worked at industrials, realize that that can take time.
Yeah. No, that's actually very important. And especially with the context to India as well as other LMIC countries, I would emphasize that access is absolutely imperative. And we may not have the access to the best of sensors or other technology, but I think that is the role what we need to play as global advocates, is to be ahead of the curve, to be in touch with what are the latest developments, and then we can bring that down to make it more contextual to our country, to our fellow type 1s here. And even in my experience, as I work with rural advocates as well as the semi-urban towns in India, we don't have the access to the latest technology that can really significantly improve lives of people living with type 1. But we still encourage them to use whatever resources are available and emphasize on monitoring, because that can bring about a huge change in their self-management. So as they have whatever access they have, like, it's important that they have a mindset to be able to use it and not just give up on monitoring. So that's a very critical part of self-management. And also, as advocates, it's our role to continuously keep updating them, keep educating them about it. Actually
And
looking
can I add a
yeah,
personal
sure.
anecdote to that? Really,
Sure,
it
definitely.
made me think of a personal story. In the early years when I was working at TheraSense, since I was living with type 1 diabetes, I was kind of the guinea pig in the lab, if you will. And it was both an opportunity and also felt like a bit of a risk to try out some of this new tech as it was being developed. But I, every few years, go on an excursion with my best friends where we do a long hike and sometimes a summit. And if I'm presenting slides, I usually show a picture of us on the top of this mountain where I'm together with my 3 friends, and we're wearing jackets and we have ice axes and we're on the top of this summit. And it's very symbolic for me in the sense that what really happened that day was I was wearing a new generation CGM device, which completely failed. And because, so it wasn't working anymore, because it was cold and windy, I was having trouble getting blood when I was pricking my finger, right? And maybe others have run into that. It was windy, it was a cold day. So I understand this is not a typical circumstance, but it was for me on that particular day. And so every hour or two, I needed to stick my hand down in my backpack, and my 3 friends crowded around me to protect me and allow me to test my blood sugar, which I needed to get to the summit of that mountain. And I think that having peer support around us, no matter how good the tech is absolutely instrumental to coping and thriving with this beast of type 1 diabetes. And so in all of the new tech I look at when I'm speaking to a new tech company, AI or otherwise, interested in your view on this, Dr. Day, I encourage people to think about the importance of peer support and how really irreplaceable it is. no matter what tech you're on. So I just wanted to share that personal anecdote.
This is a gem. This kind of sharing is the real sharing, because these are real life experiences which make us understand even better. And like you said, I totally agree with you that peer support is absolutely imperative. It's a non-negotiable part of our diabetes journey. And no matter what tech we have access to, we must have access to peer support, which can really push us in times where other things can be totally dynamic or out of hands. And as you shared your experience, I got reminded of an experience when I was on a trek with one of our communities in India, and we were at an altitude and there was no network, and that's why I couldn't access my mobile app and I lost track of my readings. But that's when the glucometer and the testing strips came in handy, because then we had to kind of go back to the the base level testing. And the peer support is always there, like what to do, what not to do. But tech and peer support hand in hand is like the real key to success. So thank you so much. I think that real life experience sharing was one of the best nuggets. But when we look back at your journey from an engineer to advocate to global leader, it's amazing how these circles, these concentric circles overlap, and we get the best of all. So we would love for you to share a message for the community at large. And what do you think is going to be the future of diabetes care, leadership, and empowerment?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly humbled to be in the presence of many other leaders here and community leaders such as yourself, Rudy. So thank you for those kind words. Particularly when I see India leading the way, whether it be in biosimilars or generics, and helping increase access, let alone on the tech front. So I'm very humbled by your words. Thank you for that. Given that I was part of the original team at MySugar, I think digital health is something I continue to firmly believe in, and particularly because I'm from a rural region myself. And I think that we are facing more and more a struggle of not having adequate ratios of healthcare professionals and specialists, particularly to people living with chronic disease, whether it be type 1 or type 2 diabetes or other forms of diabetes. And I do think that these tools can be incredible in terms of scaling that access. And we see examples in other therapies. What makes me think of, for example, AI being used in radiology is one of the examples we hear a lot about, in terms of not enough radiologists and being able to take images and having an AI engine take a look and actually make a diagnosis. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that. Again, I don't think it'll ever replace peer-to-peer. I'm a huge believer in that. But I think combinations could be incredibly powerful and reach people at a time in need, particularly when they may have a device that can reach the cloud. And we're seeing more and more examples of that. So I think for me, this has been not only incremental, but transformative. MySugar now is in the hands of a large company that continues to distribute it. That gives me a great deal of pleasure. And I think I'm on to next things in my journey to help medical technologies reach more and more people. And so I think that's what comes to mind for me. And I can't thank you enough for including me in your event on World Diabetes Day.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much. You shared a very enriching perspective. We've talked about bridging technology. We've spoken about global advocacy. You've also shared about empathy, peer support. Your work reminds us that leadership in diabetes care comes not only from invention, but also from understanding and connection with the community. So thank you so much for your time. And today, as we celebrate and bring in the World Diabetes Day week, we are constantly reminded that our lives are touched and inspired by great leaders like you. And we cannot thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. with this, we move on to our next leader and an absolutely inspiring lady with us today. We have Miss Sylvie Malufisa. I'm delighted to welcome you. Sylvie is a global advocate and the co-founder of Dialab. Dialab is an organization founded in Lebanon to raise awareness and improve the quality of life for people living with diabetes. Sylvie herself is living with type 1 diabetes, and she has now become a powerful voice for empowerment, inclusion, as well as mental well being in diabetes care. Both locally as well as internationally, Sylvie has been advocating and has been a wonderful woman leader herself. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Sylvie.
Thank you so much, Reedy, for that incredibly generous introduction. And it's really a pleasure to be here today to celebrate this World Diabetes Day event in the presence of yourself, such an incredible, admirable community leader yourself, it's been a pleasure to meet and get to know you. And thank you, Dr. Amit and Dr. Banshi. And of course, it's a hard act to follow from Kyle and all the incredible work that he's been doing. But I think I would like to just start it off with a short presentation about the story of Dialab, because I think it brings to essence some of the topics that were discussed in terms of the need to contextualize and the need to understand the level, where the patients are. So we're talking today about technology, Kyle was talking about continuous glucose monitors, but in my country, unfortunately, which is constantly plagued by war and conflict, this may not even be an option. So my story, if I could just start straight on, my story was pretty much spearheaded by my own diagnosis. I had been living in the United States. I had just finished my master's degree, starting a new job, getting engaged, and I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it was an absolute shock. It was a shock because I had been seeing different doctors that were treating the symptoms, but nobody got to the core of the heart that I was actually living with type 1 diabetes. And my diagnosis was not your typical one where you end up in ketoacidosis or with diabetic coma. It was a long, slow progression into my type 1 diabetes at an older age. So when Kyle mentioned his mom being diagnosed at 82, it just brings to light that we need more research, that what we know is not necessarily the full story about type 1. So that led to, I'm trying to do the next slide, apologies. The creation of Dialab, the National Diabetes Organization in Lebanon, which I co-founded with my mom, who is on this call, Dr. Jackie, who is also currently a VP with the International Diabetes Federation. And the mission was simple. The mission was increase awareness, let others know that my story could become their story, and let others support each other and learn about what it means to have diabetes, prevent diabetes, live with diabetes, and just have a better quality of life. And I mean, I know all of us on this call know why diabetes is so critical, but the numbers are not nice. They're actually quite shocking, and they are getting worse by the day. We are seeing an increasing rate of both type 2, type 1, and other types of diabetes. We now talk about new types like type 5 in previous Diabetes Congress. And the technology and the access to care and the medical care and the holistic care is not keeping up. So when the beauty of Dialab, and I think that the story that I want to bring with this short presentation is that I really wanted it to be diabetes patient focused. So every program was created by putting myself into how would I want to have learned, or what could have enhanced my own experience in my current diagnosis. So that led to the development of these programs. So for example, we go to the classrooms, we teach children, because if I ask people, how many of you learned about diabetes in school? Probably not many. So we go to schools, we take nutritionists, we take some doctors, we talk at the different grade levels, and we explain to them what it is, the signs, and they usually start to connect the dots between family members that they know, etc. We go to the community, especially in Lebanon, we have refugee communities, we have very poor communities, and we target the centers like the community centers, the churches, the mosques, gathering places where you can reach those people who may not even have access to healthcare or may not even be visiting a doctor on a regular basis. And in all of these events, we provide free glucose testing, some nutritional advice, etc. And you started saying, we're women leaders, and you and I know very well, Riddhi, that there is another dimension when it comes to being a woman living with diabetes. And there's not enough research there, and a lot more needs to be done. So we host these annual talks where we bring in women leaders, women living with diabetes, women health professionals, with men, of course, in the field, but this idea to bring to light the unique issues that women face. And this is something that we do every year, and that I'm very proud of, particularly. Our patient education and support systems are key. We create these safe spaces, kind of like the call today, where we can engage and discuss experiences, where we can share, where we can learn from each other, but also we provide some advanced training with professionals, whether it's on new technologies, sensitizing them to what's coming, or whether it's on advanced carbohydrate counting, how to exercise, when to remove your pump, and all these things that are very specific, particularly to the type 1 community. We have an adult type 1 group, which is quite unique. We host workshops, and these are actually very impactful because a lot of these workshops are aimed to nurse and nutrition students or nurses on the field. So because a lot of them don't know what's unique about a person living with diabetes when they come through the ER, for example, or when they come through a checkup. So this helps and supports them. And we also have a very large volunteer program where we also make them aware of the needs of people with diabetes. So if there ever is a displacement, like it happened recently with the attacks that Lebanon faced, that they know that certain medicines need to be kept in a certain way, that certain people living with diabetes need to have snacks, and to ensure that their needs are protected at all time. Of course, like your event today, we always host World Diabetes Day campaigns, and we support the young leaders in diabetes by having Lebanese young voices represented in the global sphere to represent both Lebanon and the region. And again, it comes back to the contextualizing and the needs for the local culture. And this is just an example of where, you have to adapt to your local context. So after the port explosion in Beirut in August 2020, a lot of people were displaced and lost access to their livelihoods completely out of the blue. And so we were able to identify people who needed certain diabetes medications, and we were able to continue their supply to ensure that they don't go without their medication in need. We also create publications where we talk about different medical updates, etc., just to inform patients. This is a short slide, but just to give a bit of a glimpse of some of the impact that we've had. And I won't go into detail because to me, this is the most important slide. It's the fact that we need partners, and we have memberships, and we work with partners like we're doing today to really have that global outreach. And we could not do it alone. And this is a bit of just a map of where we've been throughout Lebanon, but I hope that we'll have a global map very soon of where we're working all together. So that's just in a glimpse the story of Dialab, and I will stop sharing and open it up to your questions.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely fantastic, Sylvie. Thank you for sharing all the work that Dialab does. And, it's really interesting because we may be in different geographies, and, we may have certain specific challenges, but the challenges which are related to diabetes are pretty much similar. And we realize that, education is imperative, enlightening children in schools, keeping the communities together, the patient support groups, the cultural aspects. I think even those are so similar when it comes to Lebanon and India. And I think, the grassroots level impact that Dialab has been creating, especially in such challenging times of humanitarian crisis, I think when we look at that, I think all other challenges just seem to fade. So I think the most impactful part of this is, handling the community, keeping the community close at time of crisis, and making sure that no one goes without their insulin or other medication. I think to me that is very challenging. And what I'm in complete awe of is that this organization is led by women, and lived experience at the center, you being the co-founder, and your mom, Dr. Jackie, has been so absolutely inspiring. And today we are so excited to hear about your personal story as well. Sylvie, you've been living with type 1 diabetes for over 18 years now. And from adolescence to adulthood, through different stages of life. And as we spoke that, women have specific challenges. So how has your experience been managing this condition?
I think I have been really blessed. And it was, I'm listening and I'm thinking about what Kyle said about, you first go through that phase of the why me, what is this?
Yeah.
I think I'm blessed in that I had a very short why me phase. And I think I immediately jumped into what can I do? I wanted to understand more. I think what upset me the most with my diagnosis was that I did not see it coming. And I wasn't even aware that this was what diabetes looked like. And this is what really caused the most anger in me, and then led me to say, okay, I don't want others to feel the same way, because I honestly felt that I was living a healthy life. I thought I was a healthy young adult. I never even imagined that you could have type 1 diabetes at that age. I still thought it was juvenile diabetes. So even my own personal awareness was so limited when it came to the topic of diabetes and the types of diabetes. And I wanted that to change for myself, but for everybody around me. And I think it's in that journey of starting to get away from the anger and from the frustrations, but using that into action and to just break out that shell with that first time you share your story, which is, I think we all remember the first time we tell our friends or our family. And it's hard because it is a very humbling, it's a very emotional story to tell. But when you see the impact that it has, that they see things a little bit different, that they've learned a little bit, that when you speak on a webinar like this and you receive a message from somebody who hasn't been able to tell their friends about their diagnosis, and suddenly feel empowered to do so because they heard you, you're making a difference. And I think it was getting those feedback that set the tone to say, okay, we need to do more of this. And it was in my own journey of finding frustrations, whether it's through devices, whether it's through limited access to insulin, whether it's through, how do I keep my insulin vials in the right temperature when the electricity cuts all the time in Lebanon? Like, if I can't manage this, how are other people manage it? So it's coming up with the solutions that and making sure that the policymakers and the governments are aware about the solutions. So to me, it's really, when we talk about empowerment and leadership, it's your story is your power. Your journey is your power. And when you own that, you can really cause, ripple effects and massive change around the world. And I think that is what has pushed me to be more open and to give time and to support other groups when it comes to diabetes, because together we can do so much.
Yeah, I think, Sylvie, what you shared, I could totally relate to my personal story with your story, because even when I got diagnosed as an adult, I thought I had a good, healthy lifestyle, and it really takes us by shock. And, to handle that, that denial phase and then resistance towards accepting the condition. And I think if you and I feel that, and we feel like we have the privilege of so many things and access to so many important parts of the journey of diabetes management, that actually drives us to give back, right? And I think that's really amazing to see how you got inspired to give back. And we always have that memory of that first time when we speak up. When you were sharing your personal story, I was actually thinking of that very day when I shared my story. And right now I'm telling you this, that there are so many women listening to you and feeling inspired to come up and speak up. So that's absolutely wonderful. And you co-founded Dialab. You wanted to improve the quality of life for people living with diabetes in your country. And today I would like to know, like, how does your organization address the unique needs of the community? Because I think these needs are different culturally. Also, we do face a lot of diverse people in the community. So how does Dialab address these needs?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that we start with the community, right? We go to their community centers. We try to understand what are their needs, and we know the culture. And it's important that there are some misconceptions that are handled with that first instance, but also there are certain things that we know to be true. We know that when there's a celebration, there will be lots of sweets. This is how our cultures are, right? So how do you provide options that are sustainable? How do you explain to people that they can have one type, not 17 types, right? And then there's also the understanding of carbohydrates and coming to the level, understanding the level of where your community is at, which becomes really important. There are things like we do that are very linked to our Muslim population in Lebanon when it comes to fasting and diabetes, right? This is a very critical thing for the Muslim faith, the fasting during Ramadan, and there are ways to do it safely. So we work with doctors and we promote, safe fasting techniques and principles to ensure that diabetes patients can fulfill their religious duties and can do so in a way that is safe. There's also a lot of things that we do when it comes to women patients, because there's a lot of misconceptions about fertility and diabetes and about their ability to become moms. And I myself have been blessed with 2 boys who are now teenagers, and I always do tell that story that there is no link. And if you're in good health and if you're able to manage your blood glucose and you have support, you can become a mother and you can do many things and live a very active and fulfilling life, as long as you have, like Kyle mentioned earlier, your support and your network. And this is something that we need to encourage. And this is why groups like this and venues like this and support and advocacy groups for patients and people living with type 1 and all forms of diabetes are so key, because there is so much power in meeting others like yourself. Like you and I will come off this call, and I'm sure Kyle too, and others listening, with a high that will stay with us, not a sugar high, but like a mood high that will stay with us for a few days, because we feel like we've been heard, that somebody understands that our journey is not alone. Because that's the thing with NCDs, they're not visible, but I see you and you see me, and that is so powerful to help us with the mental health journey and our ability to stay positive and stay strong, especially as we talk about Diabetes Day.
Yeah, that's so true, Sylvie. What you said is so powerful. You see me and I see you, and we see each other beneath the layers of leadership, empowerment, women roles that we carry. The mother, the professional lady sitting out there handling the organization, the partner, the sibling, the daughter, all the multiple roles that women play. And as you were sharing about culture, I could draw a very strong parallel with India and Lebanon, because, we love our community, our families with sweets, because food is at the core of every gathering, whether it's a diabetes, education workshop or celebrating a festival. Food is the core to every gathering. And like you said, we need to highlight the role that carbohydrates play in managing our blood glucose levels. So many parallels that I could see, but education is the key, and understanding the culture. I think that's where Dial-Up does it absolutely fantastically well, because understanding the culture and contextualizing, that's what helps impactful advocacy. And also debunking myths like specific to women challenges. I think that was also really insightful. And talking about how a woman living with diabetes can have healthy children. And I think even I'm a mother, and I would say that, like, out and loud on this platform, that it's absolutely possible in the most healthy way. So, as we move on, from your perspective, what remains most overlooked in care and advocacy? Can we talk a little bit about the gaps, whether it's Lebanon or on the global platform?
No, definitely. And, it's interesting, because a lot of the gaps that you see in Lebanon or India or the US or Canada are quite global. And I think the most overlooked element is really the role that global policy and government public policy can play. A lot of times, and I have said this in many platforms before, we put so much pressure on the individual. It is the role of the individual to eat healthy. It is the role of the individual to make the right choices, to stay active. Like the WHO gives us all these recommendations. But at the end of the day, there are people who are living in conditions that they cannot help. If you are born into a slum, how do you go and do sports? If you are born into a food poor, nutrition poor neighborhood, how can you eat healthy if you are not able to afford healthy food? So I feel like there is a key gap, and that is the role that government plays in ensuring access to safe, nutritious, healthy food, healthy lifestyles for all, ensuring safe spaces, ensuring access to education and awareness, and of course, ensuring access to health. So this is why I feel like while we can do a lot from community center and we can do a lot with our communities and our groups, what I do in my day job as a policy expert, I really try to bring home that, support governments in the role that they need to play. And I think as a group and as a collective, we can do so much in increasing that role and ensuring that around the world, we are lobbying and pushing governments to take on the policies that are required to either make, like Kyle was talking about before, make glucose monitoring accessible for all. I mean, I think CGM is one of the most exciting revolutions of the times that we're living in, because it not only helps you with your diabetes management, but it's helping people with no diabetes, with other no known conditions, understand something that we're not yet grasping fully, which is how we digest, how certain foods interact, how this ability for us to be able to see real time how certain foods interact with us is an absolute blessing. Everybody should be able to have access to continuous glucose for many other issues. And I feel like you look at, for example, the advent of GLP-1 medications. The use of GLP-1 medications started to become popular as a weight loss drug. But the reality is that the impacts that they're having on reducing hypertension or reducing cholesterol or reducing others, we don't not yet even understand the benefits that we could have. So the access of these very expensive drugs has to be rectified. They should not be so expensive. They should be made more available so that we can learn more and do more. Insulin should be free. Insulin is a lifeline. Like, I do not understand why there are countries like in the West where it costs so much. I am blessed that I live in Qatar, and here my insurance actually pays for my insulin. This would not be the case if I was living in Lebanon or the US. And it's one of the reasons why I left the US. Because I was diagnosed as an adult. I did not have full-time job or insurance at the time. I was a consultant. And when I applied for insurance, I was already a patient with a pre-existing condition. So the systems need to change. This is not acceptable. And we need to really push for the role of government and public policy to make an equitable, fair playing field for everybody, whether with diabetes or other conditions.
Yeah, and that's what makes, the role of global advocates, women advocates like you, so imperative, because when you're a policy advisor, you understand right from the grassroots, going bottom up, where are the gaps? And as you said, insulin is a life-saving drug. It's absolutely important to get it free. Unfortunately, that's not the case in most countries. And like maybe you and I are not worried about where our day-to-day insulin is going to come from, but that makes it most important to work in the space. Even glucose monitoring and sensors, access to basic technology. I think some of these basic things for diabetes care are absolutely important, and we need to work a lot more in the space. But here, as we identified the gaps, we know that these are like totally important for someone living with type 1 diabetes. And speaking about insulin and technology, I think, when we move on, like how important is mental health and well-being, which connects your day-to-day living with this chronic condition. And how do we navigate these psychological aspects of diabetes, like anxiety or burnout, and somewhere even retaining our identity to the core? So it'll be wonderful if you can share your experiences.
I think, I mean, Riddhi, mental health is key, and support systems are so important. No person living with any condition should be left alone. They should have access to professionals, but also a community support network. And this is where I know in India, there's a lot of work that you have done and others have done as well when it comes to breaking diabetes stigma. And that stigma sometimes come from those closest to you who don't understand. And this is where the awareness and education piece becomes so important. Sometimes the stigma comes from the healthcare provider themselves. When they look at your numbers and they look at you and they said, what did you eat last night? And it's like, no, I didn't eat. It's not self-inflicted. My sugar was high because I had an exam. I was stressed and these things happen, right? So it's really humanizing the condition in a way that understanding that no form of diabetes is self-inflicting. Yeah, not type 1, not type 2, not there are socioeconomic factors, there are genetic factors, there are so many things, pollution, there's so many things outside of our control. And we need to remember the human at the core. And remember that we are all struggling a battle that many of us don't know what the other has. And a person living with type 1 diabetes doesn't get a break. We are constantly, every minute, looking at our glucose monitor, checking our sensor if we're lucky to have one, and struggling to, recover from a low sugar or from a high sugar. I mean, so sometimes it's many times a day. And we just need to remember the human and be more compassionate and really remind everyone out there, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling stressed, if you need support, there are groups like this, like Dialab, like Empower Type 1, like in Type 1 International Diabetes Federation. Seek us out. We're here for you. We're here to support. And that is the beauty of technology. Like we started this session today, we can get on a Zoom call. We can do as much as we can and keep advocating, keep raising awareness to remind everybody that we're here for each other and we're stronger together.
Yeah, Sylvie, you know what? I really appreciate you being so open about speaking on this space, because these are the insights that bring to life the importance of holistic management, a person-centered care, and the role that mental health really plays. And I was really touched when you said that there are times where stigma is most often even around you in such a way that people close to you. And sometimes even as we work and walk on the path of advocacy, and it's just very challenging to be at it 24/7. And every time we have the courage to be vulnerable, whether in a community support meet or on a platform like this, as you speak, you inspire so many more people, and they can get that courage to speak about their challenges. And like you said, the importance of peer support, reaching out when you really need to. I think, just picking up the phone or connecting to someone who you think is going to understand this challenge. So mental health dimension is least spoken about, but personally to me, this is one of the most important dimensions of self-management of diabetes. And as we spoke about a lot of different aspects, let's reflect on today's session. And if you could leave our audience and our community with one key message, what is it that young leaders, healthcare providers, policymakers, or people living with this condition, what is it that they need to pay attention to, on your behalf? We'd like to hear that.
No, of course, I think to all of you who are living with diabetes, don't feel ashamed. Don't be afraid. Your story is your power. There are so many out there that will resonate with your story, and just own it. And really, if you want to be empowered, own that story, own that journey, really. And for healthcare providers, I would just say, listen to your patients, listen to their stories, listen to their concerns, because only by listening will you be able to put the patient first. And I always say my sessions with my diabetes doctor are sessions. They're not visits, because he sits and asks me a lot of questions, because then it empowers him to do better. And I hope that more around the world and more doctors and healthcare providers can do that. So yeah, own your story and listen with an open heart is the message that I would give. An open mind.
Absolutely. And we are much more than our numbers.
Yes.
So let's humanize this whole process of diabetes management and empowering people living with this condition in the community.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. Today has been absolutely humbling to listen to your story, to see the work that Dialab has been doing. And I look up to you for this, multi-dimension role that you play as a woman leader, as a mother, And as the co-founder of your organization, thank you for sharing your story. Your leadership and your vision is going to really inspire many more people. And your work truly shows that the power of advocacy is grounded and rooted in grassroots level work as well as lived experiences. We are so delighted to have you today with us. And on this occasion, I wish you more success and more power as a woman leader. Thank you so much, Sylvie.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to all the other panelists today. Really, I'm humbled to be in your presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience for being with us here today. I know it's a weekday, but as we bring in World Diabetes Day, we would love to leave you with hope. And now we have Dr. Jackie Malouf, the founder of Dialab Lebanon, an absolutely inspiring lady, an international award winner. And you've had the experience of working on so many global advocacy roles. Today, you're the Vice President of International Diabetes Federation. We're so blessed to have you with us here today. Over to you, Dr. Jackie.
Thank you, Reddy, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are attending this amazing webinar. It's really hard to speak, Reddy, after these inspiring stories of lived experiences from my dear colleague on the board of IDF, Kyle, with his amazing and powerful ideas and actions as well. My dear Banshee, I know maybe they're not attending anymore. I'm so sorry about the technical issues I had at the beginning of the session. But what I wanted to say is the power of lived experiences translates in few words during this this webinar. I can hear Sylvie's story, who is my own amazing daughter, 1,000 times. And every time I hear her talk, I feel the purpose of what I do even stronger. I feel more rooted and thriving toward that purpose. So, and when I mention Sylvie, I see Sylvie in every person living with diabetes that I meet, a young lady, a young gentleman. This is how and the drive that keeps me going forward. So I want to thank you for this amazing webinar. And because you asked me, and thank you for this, I really wanted just to listen today, but you insisted that I say something. I would like to remind everyone from the attendees that the title of this year, the theme, diabetes at the workplace, has a very powerful reason. We see stigma, we see lack of inclusion, we see lack of understanding, and you heard from the talks before how people feel things that we may not even think about. So my call is upon the policymakers to look deeply into that and to really adjust the policies or create them if needed to protect the people living with diabetes at the workplace, because everyone deserves a fair treatment, to feel respected and seen. That powerful sentence that Sylvie used, I see you, you see me. We don't think of that. We need you to guide us so we know what we're doing. So I would just say, let's, all of us, let's do more and let's know more, which is the theme of the International Diabetes Federation. And would like to conclude by wishing everyone not just a happy World Diabetes Day, but a hopeful World Diabetes Day. And with the efforts of all of us joining hand in hand, heart in heart, we can do a lot more by knowing more. And I really want to thank you. I will not say anything about Dialab because Sylvie is the heart of Dialab and the backbone and the reason to be. And many people look up to her, and she's doing an amazing job. I don't want to talk more about that, but not just as a person with lived experience. I know many people with lived experiences just like her who are professionals with their expertise. They are being the voices of many other people with lived experiences. So all of us, let's do more and let's know more about diabetes. Thank you, Rudy. You are an inspiration yourself.
Thank
I'm
you.
so fortunate to have met you in Mumbai and spent those days together. You're really an amazing soul and a very powerful voice yourself. So thank you for this opportunity and for all the organizers of this webinar and for your amazing speakers today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackie. I think that conversation has driven me to be where I am today. And I'm absolutely privileged and blessed to have known you and actually to have Sylvie with us today. And like you said, both Sylvie and you together are the heart and soul of the women global leaders in advocacy. And you continue to inspire us. Thank you for joining us at this short notice as well as a different time zone. And I think I will just wrap up with the most powerful thing that I, take away today. As Sylvie said, I see you, you see me, and it's women who can uplift women in this powerful space. And when Jackie said that, I see Sylvie in, every woman out there. I think that's what we need to remind ourselves. That will deepen our purpose and drive our advocacy and call to policymakers for this World Diabetes Day is not just a celebration, but a call to action, bringing more awareness every day with lived experience champions and do more with heart and soul. And with this, we are so privileged. On behalf of Empower T1D and the India community, I would like to thank all the speakers. We've had rich experiences from Denver, from Qatar, from Lebanon, and Empower T1D promises to bring you more sessions rooted in purpose and passion. Thank you so much to the audience for joining us today, and to Dr. Jackie, Sylvie, and Kyle, Dr. Banshi, Dr. Amit Kumar De, for holding us all together in this space. Thank you very much. Wishing you a wonderful week ahead of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.